Good morning and welcome. My name's Dean Reuter. I work for the Federalist Society. Welcome to the third and final day of our convention. This is a great day to be here, I can assure you. We're going to begin in a moment with our third showcase panel, this on regulation of financial institutions, in just a moment. When I do these introductions, kicking off the convention's day's events, I usually try to have an amusing story, provide some levity, but it was a little difficult with this panel on regulation of financial institutions. But I was somewhat saved, I hope, by the 6 a.m. news this morning as I was getting ready. There are two, I guess, somewhat related stories in the news this morning that reminded me of our topic. The first has a more obvious connection to our panel, and it involves a number of items of personal property that are being auctioned today in New York City. These are the property of Bernie Madoff, a notorious bad actor whose property is being auctioned off now, presumably to pay his bad debts. He was so thoroughly good at his deceit for so long, it's almost a shame that the term Ponzi scheme has already been attributed to Charles Ponzi, because otherwise we could talk today about Madoff schemes or Bernie schemes. The second story, not as easily, I think, related, but it's a bit of a stretch, but I'll give it to you anyhow. This involves a story on Good Morning America that really originated with National Geographic in a piece called Monkeys Gone Wild. There's apparently a tribe of monkeys, several hundred monkeys, that have invaded a small town in the southern hemisphere somewhere. I didn't catch that detail. Now, I'm not suggesting these monkeys are the equivalent of financial institutions or investors, but a couple things did intrigue me. They had lots of footage. They showed these monkeys crossing telephone lines to get into the town, to breach the town wall. They showed them stealing from street vendors. They showed them picking pockets, literally picking pockets, taking food from children, baring their teeth, and generally menacing the elderly. And then apparently when out of control, that's the term that the report used, they reportedly trap what they think are the worst monkeys. And then they showed some footage of one of the monkeys just walking plainly into this have-a-heart trap, and there he was trapped. And I thought, are they really trapping the worst monkeys or just the stupidest monkeys? So one of the things I think the panel could think about is, does our regime really get to the worst of the actors or perhaps the least adept of the actors? But to delve into these matters, I'm going to turn things over now to our moderator. So please join me in welcoming Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals Judge Edith Jones. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to moderate this excellent panel this morning. I'm reminded that a couple years ago, well, I used to be a bankruptcy lawyer, so I backed into financial regulation a little bit in that area, and I moderated the panel about the mortgage meltdown in November of '07, and I must say that the panel was extremely prescient in describing the causes of what later cascaded into a catastrophe. So I have high hopes for the panel this morning. What I'm reminded of in our topic today is Ronald Reagan's famous aphorism: if an industry moves, tax it; if it keeps moving, regulate it; and if it stops moving, subsidize it. And that's what we have seen in the last year or so. To talk about the status of financial regulation, your program notes that we have a very broad range of topics potentially to cover, and each panelist will take a different view of things. But we have the causes of the financial meltdown. Was regulation too lax? Was it misplaced? Was it in fact perhaps a collaborative cause of some of the financial difficulties? And how should regulation work? Up on the board there is furnished by Ms. Nazareth is a chart of today's regulatory structure for the financial industry, which you can see is quite Byzantine. She says it's actually even worse than that. So we hope to get into that and also have some comments on the bill that Senator Dodd introduced this week to entirely rework financial regulation in the United States. It's another 1,120 pages of light reading, so it can't be all good with it when it's that long. Our first speaker will be Dean Mahoney from the University of Virginia. These speakers all have very lengthy resumes, and I'll just try to hit the highlights. His specialties are securities regulation and economic development and corporate finance. He clerked for Judge Ralph Winter on the Second Circuit and then for Justice Thurgood Marshall. Served in private practice, has also worked with European countries and advisors. Has, of course, being an academic, he's published and lectured extensively, and he is an associate editor of the Journal of Economic Perspectives and a director of the American Law and Economics Association. Stephanie Breslow is a partner in the investment management practice group at Schulte, Roth, and Zabel. Her specialty is hedge funds and private equity funds. She graduated from Columbia University, where she was a Harlan Fiske Stone Scholar, and is a graduate of Harvard as well. She is an author and a frequent speaker on the subject of regulatory topics. The Honorable Annette Nazareth was a commissioner of the SEC from 2005 to 2008. She's a partner at Davis Polk. She was the director of the Division of Market Regulation at the SEC and a senior counsel for Chairman Arthur Levitt, and previous to that at Davis Polk. And she, too, went to Columbia Law School. Then we have Paul Atkins, who is a partner at Potomac Management Partners at the present time. He's also, as of September of this year, a member of the Congressional Oversight Panel for the Troubled Asset Relief Program. He was a commissioner of the SEC for 6 years. He was a counsel to Arthur Levitt and one of the other, I can't read this very well, commissioners of the SEC, and has had an extensive experience in corporate compliance and, in fact, worked on what was the predecessor largest Ponzi scheme in American history, which is Bennett funding, but it was a mere couple $2 billion as opposed to what recently happened. Each speaker will talk for about 8 to 10 minutes, and then we'll have some rebuttal and time for questions at the end. We'll begin with Dean Mahoney.